for most of my time in Congress, and I don't think I've ever had less contact with an Energy Secretary or with your department. Even correspondence I've sent you on Yucca Mountain and on your proposed reprogramming of funds goes answered until the day before you're scheduled to appear before us. While the timing may be coincidental, it sets a tone that you only need to respond to the committee to forestall criticism. In the future, I hope we can build a more constructive, positive relationship. I know you're busy, but that lack of context makes me wonder whether you understand our role as appropriators. As an example, I note your op-ed you penned in yesterday's Wall Street Journal, where you wrote, and I quote, "And with the new authority granted by the President's 2011 budget request, the Department of Energy will be able to support between 6 and 9 new reactors," end of quotation marks. Mr. Secretary, let me be perfectly clear. There will be no authority granted unless Congress grants it. The dollars we appropriate are not yours nor the President's, but belong to the people we represent. This committee, by law, will determine how they're spent. Moving on to the matter before us, I'm generally pleased by the priorities in your 2011 request, especially the defense portion, renewables, and the nuclear energy portfolio, which signals support for a near-term expansion of this critical clean power source. Mr. Secretary, I'm also gratified to see the request for $36 billion in additional loan guarantee authority for nuclear power plants. But I ask why the administration has failed to include $360 million that the committee must set aside to cover this new authority. That omission, plus an ill-considered repetition of a proposal, which was rejected by Congress last year, to reopen contribution to the Uranium Enrichment Decommissioning and Decontamination Fund, leaves this subcommittee with a $560 million hole. By any gauge, that's a challenge that will be difficult to fill. While I'm generally supportive of your priorities, I regret that the request is nearly 7% more than last year. Mr. Secretary, more than 92% of the Stimulus Act funding you were given last year has yet to be spent, and I know there's a difference between spending it and obligating it. And those are borrowed dollars that have raised our federal debt to unprecedented levels. Frankly, my constituents want to see some restraint in the size of government, not continued growth. They want private sector jobs, not public sector ones. Mr. Chairman, this may be the only time we have you before us. I must request your indulgence to ask once again about Yucca Mountain. Mr. Secretary, this subcommittee and the public are owed answers on recent developments surrounding that license application. Last year's House-Senate conference provided clear, unambiguous language to the Department to continue the license application through this fiscal year. And last year, the full House voted overwhelmingly not to eliminate funding for it. Yet the Department has filed to withdraw the license application with prejudice, in quotation marks. If this is approved, no future administration will be able to refile the license application, even if it is found by the Blue Ribbon Commission or others that the Yucca Mountain repository is truly the best option for long-term waste storage. This decision could quite possibly expose U.S. taxpayers to billions of dollars in liabilities, and it cedes our international leadership role in the scientific and technical development of a deep geological nuclear waste repository to countries like Sweden and Switzerland that are actively working for it on a specific site. This administration has unilaterally halted a program, I believe, established on sound science, and has done so with absolutely zero consultation with Congress. And I continue to be disturbed by the Department's, quote, game plan, as you articulated in a recent conversation with the Wall Street Journal's managing editor, Robert Thompson. Permit me to read one of your quotations, and I quote, "Well, it's fair to say that the whole history of Yucca Mountain was more political than scientific, but also, very truthfully, I can say that given what we know today, the repository looks less and less good. So now we're in a situation where it can't move forward. When Yucca Mountain was being established in the early 1980s, the idea was that the nuclear industry was going to tail off. Now, because of climate change, we do want to restart the nuclear industry. Because of that, the statutory limit of Yucca Mountain would have been used up in the next couple of decades. So we need to take a fresh look at everything, all of that within quotation marks. Perhaps I come from the old school, in which $9 billion is actually a lot of money. But I'd understand your rationale. We've known for years that a second repository was going to be needed, but that shouldn't make us throw away billions of taxpayer and ratepayer dollars dedicated to building the first one. And we've known for years that other geological formations might be even better for a repository, but the consensus scientific opinion was that Yucca Mountain was a good choice. From where I'm sitting, the scientific consensus hasn't changed one bit, nor has the express will of Congress or this subcommittee. It's politics that's changed, and that is leading the administration to throw away the work of decades, adding to the cynicism that politics trumps sound science. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.